All right, everybody. I think we have most people here now, so good afternoon. First and foremost, welcome to World Lion Day and our awesome celebration of it today. Joining me, I have James Weinpress. He's our zoologist and lead lion keeper at the zoo. And my name is Annie Wheeler, and I'm one of our naturalists. So I just want to go over a few basics of Zoom before we really get started in here. If you're not too familiar, there are two different ways you can communicate with us today. You will not be able to have us directly see your video or hear your audio, but you can communicate with us through the chat function. So that's towards the bottom of your screen. That's a good way to kind of add some casual comments throughout the event. But if you decide you have a question that you really want answered by James or myself, which we will have time for at the end, go ahead and use that Q&A function that's at the bottom right next to the chat. And that will be the best way for you to get in direct contact with us towards the end. So we have some extra fun surprises for you today. We have some cool videos, some cool pictures of our lions. You're going to hear right from James about what it takes to take care of them as well. So James, why don't you go ahead and get us started? I'm going to give it right away to you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to join us virtually. Like Annie said, my name is James Weinpress, and I'm a zoologist here at Seneca Park Zoo, and I'm incredibly fortunate to work with three of the most amazing African lions to ever grace this planet. Before we get started, I am at work, got my name tag on. I smell pretty badly, which is a good thing that we're virtual. So if you hear a radio call, I have to have my radio on because we are at work. But either way, I'm very excited to have you all here, and I look forward to speaking with you about our three wonderful lions and what goes into taking care of them.
Awesome. So James, first, can you tell us a little bit about the lions we have at Seneca Park Zoo? You said we have three, but can you give us a little more info on them?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we've got three beautiful African lions, as you can see from these photos. You can't take a bad photo of these animals. All three of them, Chester, Zuri, and Asha, are about 9 years old. None of them are related. In fact, come early September, Chester and Zuri, so Chester being the only male and Zuri being the bottom right, they're actually going to both turn 10, and I cannot believe that they're hitting their double digits. But we'll start with Chester. So easily recognizable as our male because of that big iconic mane, that male sport. He's 9 years old. Chester is his name, and it's short for Rochester, very fitting for his home. He is a very unique individual. All these lions, if you go to other zoos, all the lions you meet are going to be so different from one another. And what I can tell you about Chester is he's very food motivated, which I absolutely love. It makes him a pleasure to train with. Because if he just ate 10 pounds of food, if I come over with something else, he's going to want to see what I have for him. But I also know that he's got a very short attention span. And if he doesn't understand something, or if he chooses not to do something during a training session, which we'll talk about a lot today, training's all voluntary. If he doesn't want to do something or isn't motivated to, he is more than happy to show you by either being like walking away or giving me a little sass. So I know when I'm working with him and I have his attention, that I want my interactions with him to be very positive and very quick. I'd rather have a quality interaction with him than a quantity interaction with him. I'd rather make it short and positive. Next, we'll go over the top right animal is Asha. Asha is also 9 years old. I weighed them beginning of this week, and she is around 290 pounds, whereas Chester is 401. So he's just over 400. So he's the biggest of the three. Asha is the most affectionate. If she's doing anything on exhibit and she sees one of her keepers, whether or not we have food, she's going to run over and come hang out with you for a little bit, which makes me feel really good because as a zookeeper, we don't want to just be Pez dispensers to these animals. We want them to just associate with us with good things, good interactions. And so it always feels good when she stops what she's doing and just comes over to see us, and sometimes even just lies down just to be close to us. She is probably the most confident, the most brave out of all three of these animals. So if we put out new enrichment, she's one of the first ones there to see what she can do with it, which usually, if you've ever seen any animal interact with enrichment, it usually says, how quickly can I destroy this? And then last but certainly not least, like I said, the bottom right is Zuri. Zuri is our largest female. She is around 350 pounds. She is our most intelligent lion. So when it comes to training sessions and interactions with her, I can push her a little bit more than I do the other two because I know she has the focus and the patience to do so. So when she looks back at you, you can always see that she's really, really thinking. And that calmness really plays into that. In a nutshell, I could probably go on for hours about these three animals, but I'll end it right there, Annie.
Awesome. Now, you told us a little bit from your point of view how you know the differences between them, but how would guests be able to tell the differences maybe by just looking at them or maybe different spots they choose to be when they're out on their habitat at the zoo?
Yeah, so let's focus on Asha and Zuri. So this is a wonderful picture that will hopefully teach you a little bit how they're different. So on our left, if you're looking straight at the screen, you've got Asha on your left. First thing you're going to notice is Asha is shorter than her, shorter than Zuri. She's got a slightly darker coat, and she's a little bit more muscular when you see her move around. So darker coat, a little bit shorter, a little bit more muscular. Zuri is a little bit brighter in terms of her coat color, longer legs, and maybe just a slightly longer snout. So just a larger individual. But it does take time to tell these two apart. Even once in a while, when I see a photo and it's not a straight on shot and it's maybe them looking over their shoulder, it might take me a moment. But if you spend enough time here and get to know their personalities, you're really gonna see a difference. Another really easy way is one of Zuri's favorite places to lie down is on the hood of our safari bus. So 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Zuri up there. Every once in a while, when I see Asha up there, I do a double take because I'm not ready for that. But all 3 lions will lay on that bus. But that's one of Zuri's favorite spots.
Perfect. Now, can you walk us through what a day in the life of a lion keeper looks like? What all is involved with taking care of the lions at our zoo to do it properly?
Yeah, I'll start first thing in the morning. The very first thing after I get my radio, after I get my clicker, my name tag, I go straight down to the lion exhibit and just go and I look at them. I want to see what they're up to. I want to see if I didn't see them interact with their enrichment the day before. I want to see if they interacted with it overnight when I couldn't see it, and just get a quick look at their physical condition. What are they up to? They're usually on exhibit, all lying around together. Very rarely are they inside. They're just kind of relaxing because the sun's come out. They're probably starting to warm up. After that, I make their diets. Now, these guys all have unique diets, and none of it's set in stone, so it fluctuates throughout the year seasonally. So during the fall and the winter, they're going to be eating more because they need to take in more calories in order to stay warm. And we can touch upon how we help them stay warm during the winter. But either way, they're just hungrier during the winter. I feel like we can all relate to that a little bit. And then, so right now it's Zuri's now it's the summer, so they're eating a lot less because it's just so warm. And lions are the least active of all the big cats. So right now they're really not eating a lot. Zuri is at 5 pounds, Ash 4 pounds, and Chester's only at 6. What I make in their diet completely varies on what we have in our freezer and what we thawed out at the time. So they do get a special diet called feline diet. It looks like hamburger, but you wouldn't want it because it's all inclusive. It's got tendons. It's got all different types of nutrients, all the insides of an animal that's made specifically to meet all of the caloric needs and vitamin needs of an African lion. But like yesterday, they received big chunks of deer, and they spent a long time really tearing that apart. They were really engaged with that. But they can also get chicken, turkey, they can get beef, they can get ribs, they can get big cow legs, turkey necks. They can get a lot of things, get these big femur bones that look straight out of a Flintstones cartoon. So we're really fortunate here that they have a really varied diet, and every single day they don't really know what they're going to get. I bring them all inside. I think a big question we get is, well, how do you get them out of this exhibit? And the oversimplified answer is we call them. I have a 95% success rate with just calling their names and them coming, because like I mentioned earlier, we spend so much time working to build that relationship with these animals. We don't think about it when we see Chester and we say this is a 400-pound apex predator, but if I were to frustrate him continuously, if I were ever to accidentally scare him, there's no reason why he'd associate me with positive experiences, and he might not want to come to me when I call him. So when I call his name, he knows that the last 3 years, whenever I've called him, there's something really good waiting for him inside. So he comes in and then the girls come in. We do have a building, which a lot of guests can't see. It's got 2 outdoor yards and 3 indoor rooms. And we bring them in and they are temporarily separated where I can do a training session with them. And I know we'll talk about that more later, but that's a part of their day, is just coming in and being on their own for a little bit. Once they're inside and I've given them some enrichment or given them some food, I go out and exhibit. We never share direct space with them. That's another big question we get, is do we go in with these animals? And we definitely do not. There's always some kind of barrier between me and them. So once they're inside, I go out. I'm responsible for all parts of their exhibit, everything from cleaning up leftover food and enrichment item to weed whacking and pulling weeds and cleaning out their pool and cleaning the glass. So I might have to do all that kind of stuff inside their exhibit. And then once I'm done, I put out more fun stuff for them and I let them out, and they're usually good for the rest of the day. And then I'll sporadically come back and check on them and give them more food or anything that I need to.
Perfect. And then can you tell us a little bit about the training that you do with the animals? Because I know these lions are really great with participating in that.
Yes, I hope some of the people viewing have gotten to see some of the training demonstrations we've done in previous years, because I know that's the highlight of my day. So training is a huge part of all the animals and their care here at this zoo. Because think about the last time you went to a dentist's office or a doctor's appointment, we have to do almost everything that you do with those professionals with our animals. And how do you get an African lion to show you their tongue? Or how do you give an African lion their rabies vaccination? And you motivate them to take an active role in their own health care. So I want to make sure that if I need something from them, they're going to be more than happy to participate with me in order to earn a reward. So I didn't bring one with me today, but we use a clicker. And the clicker is like a snapshot of success. They know before I ever started asking them to do anything, I would just take something they really like. So I'd have a big bucket of meatballs, and I would simply click, give food, click, give food, click, give food. And you see where this is going. Eventually, I would click, and they would just do a double take, and they'd say, "Where's my food?" So I built that association between the sound of that clicker and something good coming their way. So every time they do something great that earns that click, it's like saying, "Good job. You're going to get something out of participating and doing this." So they come in, and if I need to see their side, which you're going to see in a video, we've trained the animals to show us their side. This is great for taking a look at the whole length of their body, and this is also a great way to give them an injection. We don't want to surprise them with the poke of a needle. We all know that doesn't feel too good, so we work our way slowly up to behaviors. Every behavior, we don't train it in a day. It definitely takes time, and we communicate to the animal about what we're trying to do, and they definitely have the opportunity to communicate back. We can look in their mouths. We can look at their bellies by having them go up against the mesh with their front paws. So we can take a look, especially for the females with their mammary glands. We want to make sure that's healthy. We can even ask them to go into a smaller enclosure, and our vet is able to take their tail gently out of the enclosure, and we can actually do and work on a blood draw. Because that allows us to take a look at what everything is going on inside of their bodies. But again, it's all voluntary, which is why having this relationship with these animals is so important. Because we do feed our African lions 6 days a week. They do get food. 1 day a week they get a bone. We call it their fast day. But lions in Africa, they aren't eating every single day. These animals, if they don't want to participate, they don't have to. So again, it's in my best interest as the person who's responsible for their care to have such a good relationship with them that they come over and they look forward to me asking them to do different behaviors and earning that reinforcement that they want.
Absolutely. And we do have 2 very short video clips. If you guys, though, have been on our website, which I'm sure you have to register for this webinar event, we do have some longer videos of a training session that James is doing with both Zuri and Chester on there too. But let's play a couple of real short ones here for you today. Right, I believe so this one is the paw presentation.
Yeah, so this is in one of the indoor rooms. This is just a real quick behavior. It looks like I'm giving her a high five, but it's a great way to look at those pads. So she can show me both of her paws. You could hear that click in that video the moment that paw went up. And I got a chance to look at it. She got a click. That means she could put her paw down, and you don't see it in the video, but then I gave her probably a piece of chicken.
Perfect. And we do have one other short video of another behavior. And James, what's this one going to be?
This is her opening her mouth. We want to take a look at those big teeth. We want to take a look at the tongue. We want to take a look at those gums. So yeah, go ahead and play that, please.
Opened.
So that was Zuri showing off that behavior.
Very cool.
And lions have a lot of teeth, so I just want an excuse to hold this up because I think it's the coolest thing in the world. But this is a replica of a lion skull. And what we're looking at, if you can see this all right, lions have about 30 teeth, including these huge canines in the front. And we want to make sure that we can see those canines and all the molars and premolars in the back too. So that's a really great way, when I say open, to see that mouth open up and I get a chance to see everything that's in there.
Excellent. And now we do training for a variety of reasons, but you talked a little bit about how it's so helpful when you're caring for those animals. So we have a picture here. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with Chester in this one?
Yeah, so every once in a while, we have to do a full-blown physical on our lions just to make sure that everything is looking good on them inside and outside. And this is something that we do often. And like I said, so this is a great photo of Chester. He's getting his teeth cleaned by a member of veterinary staff. And then we're just taking all different samples. We took some blood samples for our our own analysis, and then actually we save some for researchers if anyone ever needs to get a baseline blood sample of an African lion, which that's not really a common thing. So another important role that we serve here at Seneca Park Zoo. And for him to be asleep like this, basically go in anesthesia like we would go in for surgery, we still wanted to make his participation up until the injection voluntary. So on the day before this happened, me and our vet, Dr. Lewis, who it's really important that our lions also have a very good relationship with him as well. So he comes down regularly. He came in and he leaned in, and Dr. Lewis and I have been working really consistently with getting Chester comfortable with his presence, and he was comfortable with there being some type of tactile, probably, if you look at this photo, probably somewhere on his back leg or his hip. It could have been a paper clip, it could have been a blunt syringe, and it was actually saline a couple times because we wanted him to experience the sensation of being injected with something. Again, you don't think of a 400-pound African lion being sensitive, but they are. And the last thing we want to do is spook him or have Chester associate anything negative with our animal health staff. And so today he came and leaned in, and we were able to, from our training, voluntarily inject him with a sedative. He fell asleep right where he was laying down, and we did this whole physical with him. And he got a clean bill of health. He got his teeth cleaned, took some blood samples, and he was back in his enclosure, and it was an overall success.
That's awesome. And so great to see that it's a stress-free experience for not only you and the vet, but also for the animal as well. That's so important for training.
Oh, yeah, it is really important to us. It's a really good feeling to know that all that hard work paid off, and we were able to do this, again, like you said, in a stress-free environment.
Absolutely. Now, the training is such an important aspect of their care, but you talked a little bit about enrichment too. So can you tell me how you keep the lion stimulated? This is a big cat that can sleep up to 20 or 21 hours a day. Yeah. So how do you have to kind of work around that and work to keep them stimulated?
Yeah, so you're out of all the big cats, lions are the least active. So on average, 18 to 21 hours a day, they are just resting or asleep. Especially now in the heat of the summer, it can be challenging at times to get them to interact with enrichment. But enrichment is so important to their physical, mental, and emotional health. I want every single day that they experience here to be different. And enrichment really helps with that, because every day when they come in and every day when they go back out to their exhibit, you can see they're just looking around because they don't know what to expect. And that's what I want. So there are all different types of enrichment, and it comes in a lot of different forms. And I guess I should say we want to have an effective enrichment program, because enrichment can be ineffective if you don't do it correctly. So you need to know the individuals, and you need to know them as a species. And obviously African lions they're good at leaping. They've got these claws, they've got these teeth, they've got this really good sense of smell. So one of my favorite things to do for them is to cut up small pieces of meat and hide it all around the exhibit, because that just encourages them to use those natural senses, a sense of smell, and to move around and exercise, climb on the bus, climb all over those rocks and look into those logs for food. And that's very mentally stimulating for them. So today for World Lion Day, hopefully you get a chance to see these photos. Two of our keepers built this huge cardboard zebra, and we put little pieces of meat inside of it. And especially Asha had a great time tearing it open to get at that meat. We put up a big banner that said Happy World Lion Day, and I put pumpkin spice on it, and I put some very stinky perfume. And they tore that down, and they were rolling it and having a really good time with it. The key to enrichment is keeping it novel. And the best way possible. I never want them to know what's going to come next. So if there's a cardboard box, it's not going to be in the same place every time. And inside of it, there's always going to be something different. I'm not going to spray the same scent. I'm always looking for new smells, whether it is cinnamon. They love cumin, that cooking spice. They absolutely love that. All different types of scents. They really enjoy searching for it. And a lot of times they roll in it. And it's a really great way, like I said, to keep today different from yesterday, and then tomorrow different from today. And it's fun to see what
Absolutely.
works. Sometimes the animal's response to a new smell or a new big plastic toy you put on an exhibit is huge. They have a big response to it, and this perfect plastic ball comes out just with all these holes and it's torn up. And then other days they look at it and they go, eh, and they don't really, it doesn't do much for them. I take those reactions and we record all of it because we don't want to be giving the same thing too often, and we want to be using the things that we know are already effective, but again, not too often. So it can be challenging at times, but it's really rewarding when you see the animals that get so much out of it.
Absolutely. And James, you talked a little bit about the line experiences that we have done in previous summers, and hopefully we'll be resuming next season as well. But if you guys have been there and seen either an enrichment or a training experience, it is so cool. And one of the things that James does for those oftentimes is by dangling boxes down from our Kopi rock that may have cut up pieces of meat or perfume or spices sprinkled on them. And we have a short video of James's view of when he's doing that and some definitely successful parts of that enrichment that I'm going to play for you here.
This is Asha.
Excellent. So that was definitely her interacting, I would say, at the very least, with that enrichment that you put down there for her.
Oh yeah, I like making them work for her. I don't want them to get too much stuff for free.
Absolutely. Now, my next question for you is that we in Rochester have to deal with different seasons than these lions would naturally in Africa. So a lot of guests will often ask, how do Rochester seasons affect the lions? And do they come outside during the winter? Does that make much of a difference for them?
That's a really good question. And one thing we need to remember about Africa is Africa is a continent of extremes. So when we think about Africa, I feel like we think of like the Serengeti and it's being really, really hot. Whereas that is a continent that does experience cold weathers. And they do have regional weather systems, just like we do in the United States, that vary greatly from one another. So these lions are just as adapted to cooler temperatures as they are incredibly hot temperatures. And honestly, when it's hot out, like a day like today, it's so warm, they're in the shade just like we are. But in the winter, you would be surprised to find out that these three are so active. Actually, it's easier for me as a keeper to get them interested in interacting with enrichment during the winter, early spring, and fall than it is during the summer. Because during the heat of the summer, they just want to sleep all day. But in those cooler temperatures, they seem to have more energy. But because we want to make sure that they're comfortable all the time and they've got some choices, there are 4 different heating elements built underground into their exhibit. So that big Kopi rock in the middle, that iconic Kopi rock in the middle of the lion exhibit, there's a heating pad built into that. Now, it's certainly not on right now. It's warm enough. But during the fall and summer, that gets turned on. And so they have something warm to lie on. Same thing with those 2 glass viewing areas. Right after you come down to Africa and past those goats, if they're often and they're sitting on the straw, it's also because it's heated. And then Zuri's favorite spot on the hood of that bus, again, there's a heating spot in there. And then unless I'm cleaning inside, they always have access inside, and that is a heated building with 3 indoor heaters built into the ground. So if they ever need to warm up, it's never an issue. But their coats do allow them to stay warm. These are animals that are really good at holding on to heat. So unless it's really, really windy or wet, they're going to be outside for the most part, just soaking in the sun where they can get it. And those cooler temperatures don't really bother them. So this this is great for a lion. This is kind of a terrifying snowman, but if you're an African lion, this is fantastic. So this is an enrichment item that me and another zookeeper, Brennan, made last year. There's a lot of snow in the exhibit, so we found some grass, gave him some hair. Chester does love to bite down on those Home Depot orange buckets, which are great enrichment items. And then our attempt to make the buttons and the smiley face was actually some leftover juice from their meat. So they had a really good time wandering around that and smelling it. And I believe Asha did eventually tackle it, but they did a whole lot of investigating it for a long time, which is good.
Nice, nice. Now it sounds like between the enrichment and the training and everything you guys do for them at the zoo, especially their vet care too, they have it pretty much well made at our zoo. But what would they need to survive out in Africa? What do their wild counterparts need? What are their most important adaptations to have as a species?
Oh man, so I absolutely love anatomy, and I think the adaptations that African lions have for survival is unbelievable. And the good thing is you don't have to get yourself to a trip to any of the countries in Africa where lions are. You don't have to go there to see those adaptations in use. You can come to Seneca Park Zoo. So if you ever pay attention to how the lions walk, we may not notice it, but the way they stand is called digigrade, which basically means they're functionally standing on their toes. Now, they don't feel the strain that we would feel if we were standing on our tippy toes, but functionally, that is what they're doing based on their anatomy. And that allows them to move very quickly and very, very silently. And I can tell you firsthand, if I'm out weeding by that fence, I can turn around and there's a lion on the other side of that mesh looking at me, and I had no idea she was approaching. So they're very, very quiet animals. And take a look at how they stand. It's almost like they're on their toes, which is very, very different from how we stand. We're plantigrade, which means we stand completely flat on our feet. And the comparison I like to use beyond us is the polar bear, because Anoki walks flat on those feet because she needs those pads to spread out and give her traction on the ice. And she doesn't rely on speed so much. It's more important that she be able to efficiently move around, whereas that digigrade stance is even more important for a ambush predator like a lion. I practice this. I'll probably get this wrong. If you ever seen pictures of domesticated cat at night, or I see a lot on photos of like crocodiles or alligators on a pond, there's a reflective eye shine. That's from a layer of cells in the back of the eye called the tapetum lucidum. Oh boy, I hope I said that right. You think I said that right, Annie? Tapetum lucidum?
Oh, it sounded right to me.
Okay, well, it's there regardless of how I pronounced it. So basically, lions are very active at night, and so they need the ability to see at night. And this allows maybe the dim light from the moon to go into their eyes, and that back layer of eyes reflects the light that's already entered their eyes, and it gives those cells in their eyes a second chance to utilize it, which means they're allowed to see it even better, which I just think it is an amazing adaptation. But that back layer of cells, that tapetum lucidum, is what gives that eye shine. So it's not unique to lions or cats alone. A lot of different species. I believe raccoons have it too, and there's a huge list. And if you look real closely underneath, if you take a look at any of the photos of the African lions that you see during World Lion Day or during our celebration this week, you'll see that they actually have a white stripe of fur under each eye. And again, that helps even more light bounce right into that eye, which I think is so important. The last thing I'll talk about is the mane. I mean, there's nothing more iconic than the lion mane. And I feel like I read and hear a lot of people talking about it's used for defense. Males are only part of a pride for as long as they're strong enough to defend it from other males. If another younger male or a younger group of males called a coalition comes in, they can kick out a male from a pride if they can't defend it. So a lot of people think that mane is there to protect their throat, which is really vital from these coming in and biting on. Now, while that might be true, other research has shown that this is actually a characteristic that these males have that's a signal to other males and females that show that they're mature and strong and healthy and ready to reproduce, which is a different kind of adaptation that we wouldn't necessarily think about when it comes to survival, because its function is basically just showing off how healthy that animal is, or they're of age where they can reproduce. It's kind of like a peacock's feather. So I just love those parts of anatomy and how they allow those animals to survive. I think it's the coolest thing. I could read about lions all day and talk about them, as you can tell.
I agree. I think there's just endless awesome information about them. One of the coolest animals we have at our zoo for sure. But I am going to now bring up a poll for you guys. So everybody that's been watching right now, if you were listening closely to James, you may have heard him say how many teeth a lion have. So what I'm going to do is pop up a poll for you guys right now. You should see it come right up on your screen. Take just a couple seconds here. Think about how many teeth does a lion have, because that is definitely one of their most important adaptations, those awesome teeth that James was showing in that skull. Take a minute here. We've got some answers coming in. Excellent.
I'm voting too.
All right. It looks like we've got most of our correct answers in here. So I'm going to share our results. Most of you said 30 teeth. And James, is that correct? Do lions have 30 teeth?
Correct, yes.
Excellent, excellent. Now I do have a second question for you as we're talking about adaptations. And that is, how far can a lion leap forward? So if you have been to the zoo, maybe you're a member, maybe you volunteer there, or you've just been there a couple times, you may have seen a bright red line in front of our lion habitat. And that goes pretty far out, and it's a really great chance to see how far forward you can leap as opposed to how far forward a lion can leap. So go ahead and submit your answers now. We've got them coming in. Perfect. I'm going to share the results that we have, and we have 55% are correct in that lions can leap 35 feet straight out. Now, leaping is not to be confused with jumping. They can't go 35 feet up. If they did, we'd be in trouble with the way that their exhibit is set up. But that 35 feet straight forward is so important for them to be able to really hunt successfully and catch their food as well.
And I feel like you have to be a really fit individual to be able to do that. And that's nothing that these animals do casually. You know, they're not like the bionic man. Like, it has to be during like the apex of a hunt, you know? So
absolutely,
that's quite the accomplishment.
Absolutely. We do have one last polling question here for you guys too. And we are celebrating World Lions Day today, of course, but we are asking, what is the largest big cat species in the world? So these are our 4 big cats. There are other cats that are certainly bigger than our house cats, but to be considered an actual big cat, we have lions, tigers, leopards, and jaguars. So go ahead and cast your vote now. What you think the largest big cat species in the world is. And we're going to share our results. 100% of people said tiger. James, nice. Is that correct?
Oh, that is correct, yeah.
Excellent. So although our lions are big, James said Chester's over 400 pounds around there right now. The Amur tiger, which actually, Katya, if you've been to our zoo, our Amur tiger is smaller than Chester, but as a species, those tigers are the largest of the big cat species in the world, which is pretty awesome. So James, did you have a few other things you wanted to show us that you brought with us today about those lions adaptations?
Yes, okay, so I wanted to give you an idea of just how big these canine teeth are and how much we actually don't see of them. So a good amount of the tooth actually is embedded in the jaw because the teeth are so important to taking down prey. And so a big cat like this, not to get too violent, but we'll definitely use these teeth to close off the air pipe of a prey item and suffocate them. That's why it's so important they have those really important strong canines that are strongly in those skulls. And last but certainly not least, I have a replica of a claw, which is really cool. And for the most part, I don't see these often. So they actually keep these claws back because they don't want to be walking around all the time with these clicking around on the ground. That would that would dull them out. So these are retractable and they usually stay kind of hidden away. I see these claws come out the most when you're an asha jumping up to grab something, or yesterday when they got that carcass when they're using it to hold on to it. But again, these are all replicas, but it just shows you up close just these tools that these animals have to be able to take down prey and secure the things they want.
Absolutely, that is so cool. And they are so incredibly well adapted, especially as an apex predator, which means they're at the top of the food chain. They should be doing really well in Africa, right, James? Or are they facing some issues right now?
Yeah, they are definitely facing some issues. And the sad thing is it has nothing to do with those adaptations. It's their inability to adapt to the damage that we're doing. And one of the big things that we talk about is how there used to be, what was the historic number of these animals, Annie?
I think we had about 500,000 of them.
Mm-hmm. And as of right now, we're at approximately 20,000, and they've been eradicated from about 90% of their historical range. Like basically in sub-Saharan Africa, they're found in just small little isolated patches here and there. And when we talk about the issues often that go into the decreases in lion population, obviously loss of habitat, fragmentation of habitat, loss of prey items. These animals require a lot of space and a lot of prey items to choose from because the highest success rate a pride of lions, I believe, is about 30% when it comes to taking down prey. So all the work, all the energy that goes into hunting, more than half the time it's going to be unsuccessful, and they've used up all the energy. So having a lot of prey available is so important to them. One of the biggest things that I have learned myself about conservation from learning about lions is the people who may be doing the retaliatory killing of lions because the lions are taking their livestock. I don't want those people to be seen as enemies or people that we should be angry at. A good conservation organization really studies and looks at the human aspect of why we see population decline in endangered species, vulnerable species. A good conservation organization will go in and work with the local communities and find out the cause of the declines and the conflict. I have found as a conservationist myself that if organizations and people who want to help the people who share the environment with those animals, you help the people, you help the animals. So I never want the people who do retaliatory killing towards lions to be vilified, because these are people who are seeing their livelihoods taken away. And I honestly can't hold it against someone if they are going to put the needs of their family eating and having their resources over the needs of an animal. So that's why supporting an organization like Seneca Park Zoo is important, because we take the popularity of Chester, the popularity of Asha and Zuri, and we can take the funds we bring in as an organization and support organizations on the site in Kenya, in Uganda, in all the different countries in Africa where there still are lions, and they're on the ground working and empowering communities so they have what they need. And when they have their resources met, which is something that humans deserve, then they can take the time and to really help with lions. And then you see peaceful coexistence.
Absolutely. That's such a big key part in conservation and making it a success too. Now, because at the zoo, we do support a lot of different conservation organizations, is there anything that people can do hands-on at home maybe to help lions right now?
Yeah, so I have found, I've had a lot of people asking about what can you do during a pandemic to help with lion conservation when we're social distancing, when we're just being really cautious about what we're doing outdoors. And I have found the University of Minnesota Lions Center takes part in Snapshot Safari. And this is really, really cool thing, because like the lions take an active role in their own healthcare, we can take an active role in this citizen science project to help identify animals. And I believe it's through Zooniverse.
Yes, and we're actually going to post the link in the chat if you want to get involved with this too, as James is talking about it.
Yeah, it's almost like a game. So there are camera traps in different countries throughout the continent of Africa. And there are so many images taken from these camera traps that the researchers need our help. And like I said, it's kind of like a game. And I actually sat down one day and spent a little while doing it, and it was really fun. So you can look through photos, and there is an ID guide, and you can actually help identify the animals that take place, that occur in certain environments. And researchers can then say, okay, in this habitat, we're seeing a frequency of this prey species. If you're lucky enough, you could see a pride of African lion, and you can say, I saw 12 of these, or, I saw a wildebeest, or I saw a warthog. Or if you see some animal in the distance, you don't know what it is, or you just see the horns, there's actually a whole guide that teaches you and narrows down your search. It's really, really cool. It's kind of like a Where's Waldo type situation. And you're really helping provide important data to researchers. The more they know which animals inhabit a different ecosystem, the more they know the needs of that ecosystem, especially with African lions that need so much space and that are an umbrella species. And if you have African lions in a small amount of space, you're going to be supporting a lot of different animals that also thrive there. So I definitely check it out. You become really good at identifying animals, and you're doing something good for lions and for a lot of different animals in the continent of Africa from the comfort of your own home.
Absolutely. Now, James, we do have a couple of questions that people came up with, especially when we were talking about their adaptations. I wanted to ask you real quick, and then we'll end this pretty shortly here. But my first question is, given how lions walk on their toes, are they prone to foot problems as they age?
Well, any older animals, since animals at the zoo and AZA accredited zoos tend to live longer than they would in their natural habitat, we do look for signs of like arthritis and things like that, age-related issues. But because it's not like they're walking on their tippy toes, and they're not feeling the strain of walking on their toes like we would as humans, because they are adapted and built to walk that way. So walking on their toes is as comfortable to them as it is for us walking on our flat feet. But saying that though, as a zookeeper, it is really important that I do pay attention to their strides and how they're moving, because if one of them gets a cut on their pad, or they're going to be 10 soon, they're getting a little bit older, it's really important that we pay attention to any change in their movement whatsoever to make sure that they're comfortable. So I'm not specifically worried about them straining those pads or their toes or anything, because they're built to walk like that. But in terms of always watching their behavior, and their movement is really, really important, no matter how they stand.
Absolutely. The next question we have about their adaptations is, can you explain how their tongues help them break down food and what role that plays?
Yes, yeah. Oh, I wish I would have brought that up. Whoever asked that question, good job. So, if everyone's ever been licked by a domestic cat, it seems pretty rough. That's the same thing with an African lion, except for much, much more, because you're dealing with a much larger animal. So they have those little tiny spines on their tongues. And actually, when it comes to African lions, there are keratin tips on those spines. And keratin is the same type of protein that's on our fingernails. And that's actually, they use those tongues like sandpaper. And when they lick, so they got that deer carcass yesterday, they can literally lick the skin off of bone to expose the meat and everything they want, and the bone itself. So that's a really important tool for cleaning off the fur from their prey items, or the food that we give them here, because they do get that as well. So not that we'd ever allow that to happen, but you don't want to let a lion lick you, because they lick your skin off.
Absolutely. And we have time for one last question here. And this one is, have these lions ever had cubs? And I know that you mentioned it briefly, but can you get into a little bit more about how that can help lion conservation too?
Yes, of course. So for the African lions that we have here, we participate in the species survival plan. If you ever look at the information signs that we have in front of some of our species, it's referred to as the SSP, the Species Survival Plan. And we participate in a lot of those for threatened, vulnerable, and critically endangered species. And so basically, we work looking at species conservation on a larger level outside of the grounds of our own zoo. And there is a group of experts within the zoological community that keep track of the genetic lineage of all the lions under human care, which is a giant undertaking, and it's really, really impressive. And we want to make sure that we have a lion population in AZA-accredited zoos that is growing and genetically diverse. So we do participate in that. It's all voluntary, but it's an important program, and we're happy to participate. Years ago, Asha and Chester did reproduce, and their cubs, who are also part of the Lion SSP, have moved on to other zoos. And at this point, they are great grandparents. So they have their genes well represented throughout other zoos. I believe we have offspring at Buffalo Zoo, Denver Zoo, and maybe one more. But if you go to those zoos' Facebook pages, or if you find photos of their offspring, they all look like carbon copies of Chester and Asha. It's really, really cool to see that family resemblance. As for the future, all three of our lions are recommended to breed. We keep track of that, just any behavioral observation, like how the animals are eating, how they're moving, and any reproductive behavior. We do report all of it, which we look for it, but it's up to our lions. So keep your fingers crossed. We hope to see cubs in the future, because it's an important thing to do, to have more lions.
Absolutely. So I think that's just about all the time that we have for today, guys. But thank you so much for joining myself and James and learning a little bit about our awesome lions at our zoo. And keep your eyes out on our website and our social media for the rest of the week, all the way through Sunday this week, for more fun lion activities, more cool facts. You can check out more videos of James working with our lions too, and ways to help conserve them in their natural range too. So James, thank you again for joining us. And for all of our participants today, thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of Awesome Lion Week.